Hello, everybody. It is another Monday morning, and I am here with your favorite podcast to start off the week, No More Mondays. My name is Angie Callan, and I host this show where I like to think that you can have a thriving career or business and an amazing life on your terms. So I bring you people who not only prove that, but also have awesome advice and tools to help you live and work more authentically. I got a new one for you today. A pastor and a social media influencer walk onto a podcast. Spoiler alert, they are the same person.
Yes.
Love it, Mark Lebrun is a force to be reckoned with, as if you can't already tell. I learned that when he and I shared a stage a few months ago at the Thing, which you've all heard about by now if you listen to this podcast more than once in the last few weeks. And he and I hit it off when we discovered a lot of common ground across many life and leadership topics. Believe it or not, Mark channeled his experience in educational leadership and ministry and nonprofits into a booming social media presence where he's engaged over 10 million people with inspiring and transformative content. And through that journey into the unexpected, he found a new purpose, which is teaching others how to do the same, how to scale and how to monetize their presence so we can have the impact we all want to have. So if you're a creator, a brand, a founder, a nonprofit, anyone who's just a plain old good human, it's time to listen up because Mark Lebrun is here to preach. Mark, welcome to No More Mondays.
Oh my goodness. I feel so exposed, Angie. I didn't think you were going to talk to people or expose the people about me being a pastor. I try to keep down the low sometimes. I'm just messing with you though. It's okay. I'm all right with that. It's fine.
It's part of your brand and your authenticity, which is what we're all about here.
It's part of who I am.
What I love about it is whatever your belief system is out there, Mark and I have opinions, but we won't share them. No. Whatever, regardless of any sort of, theological subject matter here, if you are somebody out there who's changed careers, contemplated changing careers, or ever tried to figure out what your transferable skills are, you're sitting here baffled thinking, how does somebody in ministry leadership get into social media influence and coaching and consulting? And so I feel like it's very reasonable out there. We are in the business of giving people hope. That's another thing you and I share. So I think it's really an inspiring thing to explain to people, how did ministry lead to social media influence and the business that you're also now growing?
First of all, that's a really good point that you're making. And it is part of who I am. But the reason why I share, I try to shy away from that is because, some people got a stigma about pastors. I don't mind being called a pastor, but at the same time, I just don't want to create any barriers to somebody not wanting to listen to who I am and what I'm about. Because if we could be honest, there's a lot of negative talk around church and faith and religion, but I don't care. Honestly, I love Jesus.
Every stigma that exists, which is why I think it's so important for people to hear that. And you admit that the stigma does exist, which already should tell everyone out there the kind of person you're talking to.
Yes. And my heart is really to represent the love, the beauty, the hope of Jesus, bringing gospel influence in every sector of society. And this is why I actually stumbled across, social media influence and digital marketing. I was not on the trajectory at all in my career of even ministry. I was on the trajectory of becoming a psychologist. I wanted to be a professor / a counselor. And then God was like, I'm going to lead you to helping people through faith and life. And one of the beautiful things that really transformed me is how I could use my cell phone to share a message that could reach the masses. And I think that's what really changed my life. It was about 6-7 years ago when I really started exploring the whole digital marketing and the social media landscape. And man, over the last 5 years, I've reached millions of people utilizing social media. It blows my mind. So I stumbled upon it out of, which is, it was nothing planned. I didn't plan this, if that makes sense, Angie. Do we ever plan to be doing stuff?
No, sometimes? I was going to say we don't ever plan. And what I find so interesting is you mentioned that you were on a trajectory, psychology,
Yes.
counseling. So that maybe there was a seed there. It got watered and it grew in a different way than you expected. Because doesn't it feel like that played out just in a way you didn't expect?
Most definitely. Oh my God, you're just making me realize that right now, actually, because for a very long time, I always felt like people need other people that, understand where they're coming from, understand what they are going through. And I almost felt like, we as a society, we don't often create space for people to belong and to hear their heart and to hear their burden and to hear their pain. So for me, I always wanted to find ways to be the change that I want to see in the world, because I grew up not seeing that. I come from a town where it's easy to suppress your emotions, your feelings, your pain, and just go about life. And you just smoke your pain away or you drink your pain away. But when I came to Jesus, I always felt like this needs to change. And it's crazy. I went into psychology for the sake of helping human beings, for the sake of helping people through life. And you're making me realize that now, which is so crazy to me. I'm having a moment right now.
That gave me some kind of chills, and because I do believe that we are all given gifts and a purpose and a usually a drive to use them. And I know, Mark, you and I both share that just very intense love of people, and I it's so interesting to find the different ways with which that manifests itself, and the fact that this whole, let's say, trajectory or plan that you thought you had in place or that was going to move forward changed. Look at the impact you were able to have. You ended up impact so many more people than if you'd have been in psychology or a counselor.
Yeah, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, I was just looking at some of my analytics on my YouTube channel alone. Like, for 28 days, from January 1st, 2025 to January 28th. And I'm gonna read it to you because I have it up right here in front of me. It blows my mind, sis. I reached over 324,000 people in just 28 days.
In a month.
And like, it's scary how your online influence could help you reach people you would never reach in your local region. Like, this thing goes way beyond, your local reach. You have the potential of having global reach, just utilizing a YouTube channel or podcast like yourself. Like, I'm pretty sure you got audiences or followers that are tuning in from all around the world. And it's just amazing that we could utilize these type of tools and assets to build businesses and change people's lives.
And I think what is so important is we're not talking about being a social media star. We're not talking about YouTube statistics. We're talking about
that all day.
The ripple effect and the scale and the impact and what you can do with those things as vehicles.
Thank you you need to say that louder for the people in the back. Please. Because all too often people, these content creators, and I get why, because it's been pushed in the media, but we make it about numbers. We make it about how much money we're making. We make it about how many followers we have. And honestly, it's about changing one person.
Yes. And you are not that person. Now that said,
yes,
that can actually happen. And I know that's part of your story too, is how your life changed and was positively impacted through all this work. So tell me a little bit about that, because you didn't set out to do that. That was in a way the reward for doing the work of the gifts and the purpose. But talk to me a little bit about how your life has changed as a byproduct of you putting yourself out for others.
I would have never thought that I would have the freedom to create content that puts money in my bank account. Like I honestly, I grew up learning you go to school, get a degree, get a nice paying job, work 9 to 5, and that's it. Now, like I literally am basically an entrepreneur where I'm creating opportunities for people to get it connected with my content, my coaching programs, whether it be my books or one-on-one, whatever it is. And it's like, wow, I could do this on my timing, not necessarily a boss hovering over me, which is no shade to that. I don't want to make it seem like a 9 to 5 is bad, because I used to work 9 to 5. It's just that I didn't know that I could create opportunities like this using social media. And it's been a blessing in so many ways that I get to be in my house, be with my daughter, be with my wife. We both have the luxury of working from home, praise God. But so many people always tell me, like, your kids grow fast. And my child is only 3 years old right now. She's my beautiful princess, my daughter. And I've had the privilege of seeing her grow up for 3 years because I've been working from home, creating content. So, like, that's one of the ways it has changed my life. And I have so many other stories, but if I would have talked to you about them, Angie, we'll be on here for a long time.
Especially because I feel like you and I are just going to go back and forth. Like, yeah, I have one of those too. Because, speaking of just where the place from where we come, I grew up in a very rural part of what I would call conservative Pennsylvania. Church every Sunday, sometimes on Wednesday nights. And it's a small place where a lot of people don't aspire to be more, and also similar to you generationally of that kind of idea that you go and you get one of the like 6 to 8 typical jobs, typical career tracks that existed, when I was going to college 25 years ago, and you're going to stay the course. But what I found was that it was like, I was like busting at the seams, and it was because I wanted to do something so entrepreneurial. And like you have had let's say the output that's come back to being exactly where I'm supposed to be. So like home buying, Mark and I were sharing stories before we started recording about how like we have both been able to buy homes because of our entrepreneurial endeavors. And and it's just one aspect of like why I am super passionate about the power that entrepreneurship has to change your life, but more importantly, the lives of others. And that's where the impact to us individually comes, is because you've gone out there with this purpose and this, I'm going to impact people. And then look what comes of it. It's like your whole little world gets better and has so much more meaning, which is why I get really, really fired up about it.
Yes, I agree. Yes. Yes.
So I want to talk a little bit about the kind of the courage it took to get out there, because to tie back to, my little slippery slope of an intro where I revealed the pastoral ace and the stigma that can come with it, because while
it's all
I'm not
good.
going to go there, those who are listening know what I mean when I say I struggle with the identity component of that as well. And so I feel like there's a very heightened aspect around like the vulnerability it may have felt to step out there. And I talk to a lot of other entrepreneurs, or let's say want to be content creators, who struggle with that. And they feel like they're going to sound dumb, or people are going to make fun of them, or all of these other very vulnerable things. So I'm curious, how did you find the courage to get out there? How, even more importantly, did you get over the vulnerability and find a way to do it in a very authentic way?
I'm going to give you the short answer, and then I'm going to explain my short answer. I just kept creating. I just kept putting myself out there. But I'll tell you this. I was very afraid when I first started. I'm look at me now. I'm a little comfortable talking in front of a camera, even though I know you're right here, Angie, and we're live. But there was a time where I was shaking up before I pressed record. And it was because I knew that I'm putting my voice out there, my personality, my thoughts. Everybody in the world could see how I think, how I talk. And it was very scary, very scary. And then it got more scarier when I posted my content or put myself out there, and I had critics and people who said things that were negative, and they called me names, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is even more scarier. But I kept posting and I kept creating content. And what really helped me was the mission and my why. Like Simon Sinek, he always talks about starting with why. Starting with your why. And he's a brilliant leader, by the way. But my why is what really drove me to keep going, despite of the challenges, despite the fear, despite all the things that I was going through, like my insecurities. You probably don't even know this. I don't know if I talked to you about it at the thing. I don't know. A lot of things are going on in my mind right now. But I was very insecure with sharing my voice and very afraid of public speaking in general. And I can't believe that.
Talk about that, and I'm surprised based on how poised you were when chatting on stage, but just even in how poised you are when communicating with like one-on-one or even here.
Oh yeah, I'm telling you, God has took me a very long way. Like I was the person that I took a public speaking class in college, and I was the person that was shaking and sweating when I first did my first public speaking speech in college. And I think what really helped me was clarifying my why and focusing on my mission. And for any content creator that's out there, maybe you want to get started, I think you need to start with your why. Like your why should drive you in creating content. If your why is not strong enough, you're not gonna go beyond the fear to start creating and start putting yourself out there. So that's what really helped me. And what's interesting? Someone just reached out to me yesterday, a licensed doctor who works for a really major hospital. She's a nighttime doctor, and she wants to explore content creation. And I was just talking to her yesterday. I don't even know her, by the way. I just met her online, which is crazy. But I was just encouraging her, like, because she asked me, I don't know if people would want to hear what I have to share. And I said, what? You are a doctor. First of all, I would want to hear
what you have to say. You're a doctor.
You are a doctor. Like people come to you to find healing and medication and all that stuff. So that goes to show you, like, there's a lot of people that are thinking about being content creators. Some people are on the fence. Some people don't want to do it at all. I get it. For those of you who are interested, I would encourage you to do it, but make sure you have a strong why on why you're doing it.
Yeah, that conviction or the why, or feeling that like purpose, or almost like this compulsion, like I can't not do it, is very, very helpful in making you say, I know I need to put this out there, and who cares whatever anybody else has to say, and dealing with those words of critic, especially because, in this particular instance, we're talking about a fear of being out there in a very, very polarizing area.
Oh my goodness.
No matter how tactful or PC you are in your videos, somebody's going after you. Right?
Yes.
And without that conviction, it starts to feel very personal, when in actuality, it is not. It is about the other person. They're just projecting on you. And that can be very powerful to having that foundational why when you're starting out this kind of stuff.
Yes. I'm curious to know, how do you respond when somebody comes with you with their negativity or those trolls?
I have also been through a journey. He has a way of doing that. And what I have found is that when you've been in a place of rock bottom, or something that feels like rock bottom, you start to learn what matters and what doesn't matter. And it really thickens the skin. And to the point that, like, things roll off your back. The threshold of what seems challenging or what seems critical just continually raises. And I think that that's the case, whether it's social media, whether you own a business and you're dealing with challenges in it. We become more and more conditioned through failures and through
That's right.
learning to be able to tackle things. And I think that also, to tie back to the why, makes us even more committed and rooted in it.
That's right. That's so good. That is so good, Angie. Thanks for sharing that. I know you got a platform like this podcast is taking off, and I know some people might like it, and some people might got something to say about it.
You got something to say about it? Chat's open, people. Bring it.
I love it.
And this is where I don't know how to be anything other than unapologetically Angie.
Right.
I try to do that without being abrasive and to be lovingly, tactfully, kindfully direct. But ultimately, we need to be discussing stuff more. And if you can create a platform for it without being polarizing, but having empathy, our whole world, especially our country, would get a whole lot better. And that's why I think it's important that if you feel like you have something to say, it is your job, it is your gift, it is your purpose. You are called to put it out there, because who are you to keep that from the person who needs to hear it?
Woo! That's a masterclass right there. Who are you to keep that from the person who needs to hear it? Oh my gosh. And that's one of my like, man, you're I feel like you're in my head, sis. But I kind of lead with that a lot of times. Like, as a leader, I feel like I have a responsibility to help people that I'm called to, right? But sometimes I might have these barriers that are trying to keep me from helping people. And I've learned to be like, hey, first of all, Mark, this ain't about you. This ain't about your critics. This ain't about your haters. This ain't about the opposition that you're facing. You better not allow all of these things to keep me from reaching the people that I'm called to reach. Like, and this is like a constant reminder of mine that I have, because I feel like people's lives are on the line. Is that clicking when I share that? Like, people's lives are on the line. Like, there's something that either you share, Angie, or what I would share that could literally change or transforms somebody's life for the good. And I kind of lead with that in mind. Like, man, this person could change their whole family if they heard this one thing, or if they jumped on this podcast, or if they heard this live stream. Like, I don't know.
Needs it. Of those 425,000 people who tuned into your YouTube just this month, I guarantee you at least one of those people
just
left that 12-minute snippet feeling like, oh, right. And that's exactly why I wanted to do this podcast in the first place, was fundamentally to make people feel like we could stop being mediocre in our careers. That has now elevated to a new mandate of having better lives because we have better careers. But that's exactly what we're out to do, is give people the inspiration and the hope, and maybe even a little practical tool or two to rip the Band-Aid off and do the thing.
Wow. Sis, yes. Oh my gosh.
This is we just preaching now. So speaking of active actions, I want to go back to kind of a little bit of that how, when you were in the vulnerable state of like trying to get yourself out there, trying to overcome that fear of speaking, fear of criticism. What are a couple like practical things somebody could do to just like inch themselves forward? So like the doctor, for instance, if she says, I feel like I got something to say, I'm afraid to say it. What do you tell somebody like that from a practical perspective in order to get some inertia?
Ooh, I have so much in my mind. I'm gonna spew out a few.
I love spewing.
Yes, I think a lot of people underestimate the power of proximity. Being in proximity in people who add value to your life, or being in proximity with greatness around you. I am a big advocate for having mentors and having people that inspire you, that you can call, that you can say yes sir to or yes ma'am to. That's honoring words. And honestly, I've purposely surrounded myself with people that pour into me, that remind me of my call, that remind me of my purpose. And that's a practical thing that I want to give somebody who's looking to get started or experiencing some level of friction. Like, who are the people that advocate for your next, advocate for what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's a business, whether it's starting a YouTube channel, whatever it is. You need some people in your ear that's pouring into you, that remind you that, hey, there's greatness inside of you. So that's one. Number two, I also am a huge person, and I know this, everybody probably hears this, but I don't think a lot of people actually implement it. And it's the power of reading books, the power of you studying your material, making sure that you know things. Like, I didn't just go out just starting a YouTube channel. Like, I was learning about this thing in the background, and I'm still learning it today. Even with podcasting. I don't know if you know this. I used to have a podcast. I don't have a podcast anymore. I'm going to start another one.
I was just going to say, shall we have a convincing you to restart that thing conversation?
I'm definitely going to get to it. But before I started one back in the days. Yeah. Y'all reach out to Angie if y'all need to learn how to start a podcast. She'll help you for sure. But back in the days before I started it, I did a lot of research, and I learned that podcasting is a $1 billion industry. Like, I think it's actually in its infancy stage on the potential of income and wealth that people can generate from it, by the way. That's side note. But I did a lot of studying about it and learning before I started it. And I think sometimes we just want to start without studying or knowing the ins and the outs. Like, example, I got monetized on my YouTube channel, which is beautiful. Like, that's another income stream for getting paid through ads. I don't know really a lot about it. Like, I don't know about it, but here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go study it. I'm gonna go learn it, making sure that I am within their guidelines, that I don't get kicked out. Like, don't underestimate the power of studying your craft or studying to show yourself approved. That's a Bible verse, by the way. So that's tactical. The last thing I would say is, don't worry about being perfect. It's about making progress, not being perfect. So, and you trying to perform, and I'm a huge perfectionist, by the way. So I'm huge on getting things right. It's not always about being perfect. It's about being willing. And you're going to learn that even in your mistakes, you can still make an impact. So I don't know if that one's tactical. That's more so inspirational.
It's more tactical than you think, because also, by the way, in your mistake could be the impact, which I think is super powerful. Yes. Can somebody write that down for me? That was good. But I literally talked about progress over perfection on LinkedIn last week, because it is such a thing that plagues us all. And I think it is the perfect thing to kind of like emphasize the fact that you do need to be a student. You need to be informed. You always need to be learning, but you have to balance that with trying to know absolutely everything, to the point of now you're either going to procrastinate or have imposter syndrome because you're not going to put it out there, when actually putting it out there is part of the study.
Wow. yeah. Somebody do need to write it down. Sis, you need to write a book. You got books? You got books?
Oh,
I would definitely buy your book.
But
my gosh.
I actually had somebody in my mastermind just a month or two ago who was like, Angie, you think everything could be solved by a book? And I'm like, Like, how many original ideas are there out there, really? Which means you can find most things in some kind of reading material, as evidenced by my background for any of those of you watching us on video. But
Yes.
I think what is so amazing about the tactical piece, the 3 tactical pieces you provided, is they also still have a little bit of a higher level aspect to them around
Mm-hmm.
this idea of like really being cognizant and aware of who you surround yourself with and whether
Yes.
they fill you or deplete you. And from a tactical perspective, you can take stock of that and
Yes.
evaluate the people who you're, and if you don't have people who are lifting you up and encouraging you and challenging you
Yes.
to step out of a comfort zone and to kind of follow that why, you ain't surrounded by the right people.
That's facts. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. And a lot of people, I'm gonna say one thing around that. A lot of people are around people that are draining them, that are preventing them from fulfilling the call and the purpose that's over their lives. And I feel like we need to stop doing that. Like, people's lives are on the line, and people could literally find the answer to their problem if only we would just answer to the call that we all have. Because the truth is, we all have a unique call and a unique purpose. It may be different, but you still are called. And I just want you to embrace that calling and get away from people that are preventing you from fulfilling that.
Energy vampires ain't gonna do nothing for your future progress. However, people that
That's
fill
true.
you and being a student and putting yourself out there before you think it's time or before you think the thing is perfect will help you step into that calling that I also agree that I feel like we all have. Most people, if they're even aware of that, don't seek it out. And that's where you can differentiate yourself, by being someone who seeks out that calling, that purpose, that why, and roots everything you do in it, because then you're not going to give you know what's about what anybody else has to think, except for the people who are getting a positive message.
Right. That's so good. That's so good.
I hope we helped somebody today.
I believe we did, for sure. Oh, yeah.
So and also, Mark and I were chatting before we came online, like, he has some stuff going on. I didn't even tell you when you told me that I got stuff going on. And I'm like, man, I don't know about doing this podcast today, but we showed up and we're here, and we were totally meant to, because this was super fun. We have to say hi to my mom because she listens to every single one of these. And I know I can just hear the text message right now as soon as she has finished this episode, because I'm pretty sure, sorry, Mike Brennan, you're going to be the new favorite, Mark.
That really makes my heart too warm right now.
And let's leave everybody else with a little kind of feel good and hope, because we were also talking about something before we started that I loved your perspective on, kind of like, what do you think of No More Mondays? And you had a very on brand kind of little bit of encouragement that I thought was the perfect way to wrap this episode. So what's your perspective on No More Mondays?
Mondays shouldn't scare you. And the reason why Mondays should not scare you is because you have something that you're pursuing that goes way beyond all your tasks and all the things. We don't got time to name it, but all those things that really drives you nuts. It drives you crazy. If you have a why, pursue that why. Center your life around that why. Like, most people, the reason why they don't have a drive to wake up and work or do whatever it is they need to do on Monday, it's really because they don't have a strong enough why to go and pursue. Like, do you wake up with a conviction to either make an impact? And your impact, whether big or small, whatever we call that, it could be you providing for your family, feeding your children, supporting your wife, saying something that literally lighten up their day. All I'm saying is Mondays don't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be scary. Nope.
And they become less scary when you know your why and you understand the impact you have. And there is no impact too big or too small, as long as it is the why you are meant to give to the world.
Come on. Thank you for that.
No more Mondays.
No more Mondays. Listen, I really appreciate you for having me, Angie. Like, I really enjoy my time. I would love to do this again. I would love to do this.
I don't want to say goodbye because I'm like, I feel like super jazzed, which gets me excited for the rest of my day. And so I appreciate you, one, giving and making time, two,
Mhm,
being willing to lean into your call and your why to impact
mhm.
others, and three, being willing to be vulnerable in order to do that and sharing that with us because somebody needed to hear this today and
Yeah,
somebody needs to hear what all of you out there have to say. So
absolutely.
lean in, heed the call. And if you need help, Mark and I are here.
Absolutely. I appreciate you.
Mark Lebrun, everybody, this was just a special episode. And I hope all of you agree and will reach out to us if we can support you in your lives, your careers, your, social media initiatives, or whatever it is. I appreciate all of you leaning in and listening to us for the last 35 minutes. And I hope you have a fantastic week. Forget what day it is as you root yourself in your why and carry on and make impact in this world. I'll see you all again next week for another episode of No More Mondays podcast.
No more Mondays.